Kusha Kapila did something that makes no sense on the surface. She launched a mass premium shapewear brand with a cutthroat, highly operation-heavy industry. Before this, she was primarily known as a comedy creator and an actor, not a supply chain expert. Now she have entered the $5 billion Indian women's innerwear market. In this video, we will cover the exact content to commerce playbook that she used to hit 150 crore ARR in just 8 months. How she completely Indianized Kim Kardashian's $4 billion Kim's empire and the hidden unit economics of building a highly profitable D2C brand from scratch. Let's get started. And right now, before we unpack the actual math behind the business, hit the subscribe button for more business breakdowns. Now, to truly understand the magnitude of what Kusha's actually pulled off, we have to look at the global blueprint. In 2019, Kim Kardashian launched Skims in the United States. And Kim did something entirely revolutionary. Kim took an industry that was historically built on shame, restrictions, and hiding her body, but she completely flipped the script. Kim wasn't marketed as corrective shaping, it was aggressively marketed as comfort, enhancement, and feeling unapologetically good while owning your skin. That massive psychological twist turned Skims into $4 billion empire overnight. It proved the entire world that the shapewear market was starved for a modern rebrand. But now let's look at the Indian landscape. The Indian women's innerwear market is an absolute juggernaut. It is currently valued at $5 billion US, and the data suggests that it will pass over $10 billion US by 2030. Yet look at the massive players dominating at this space. Brands like Zivame and Clovia have built an highly incredible and successful business in this space, but they operate primarily in the utility sector. You buy them because you strictly need them. But for modern, ambitious Indian women, that legacy branding often lacks Indian cultural resonance. It feels entirely transactional and it is not aspirational. And then there is the real-world friction, the Desi wardrobe dilemma. Imagine the physical reality of dressing up in India. You are wearing heavy, elaborate ethnic wears, and here we are talking about embroidered lehengas, tightly draped silk saris, or complex modern fusion wear. Now add 35 degrees Celsius heat to it. Add the oppressive Indian humidity. Now try putting off thick, stiff, western style shapewear underneath. All of that heavy fabric. It is an absolute nightmare. It is literally like trying to figure square shape in a round hole. The western shapewear was simply not engineered for the Indian weather and conditions. For decades, the marketing of these garments were entirely clinical. The underlying message told women that they needed to be fixed. It made them felt guilty of their natural curves. But Indian women did not want to be fixed. They wanted a solution that feels like seamless second skin. Something that they could wear under a tightly draped sari for 12 hours in an Indian wedding, without feeling like they were trapped in Victorian's corset. Despite the $5 billion market size, there was massive and glaring vacuum. The market was begging for a brand built on entirely digital community trust and not just clinical utility. And that is exactly the vacuum, my friends, that Kusha Kapila walked into. So how did a digital comedy creator build a successfully physical product that bridged this massive gap in the market? This brings us to the core strategy. Let's break down the framework 1. The audience first product metrics. If you analyze 90% of the D2C founders, they follow a highly fluid timeline. They start with a product, they lock themselves in a room for months, and then they scramble to find an audience to buy it. They push features, they push heavy discount coupons, and then pray for conversions. But Kusha did the exact opposite. She built the demand first even before she built the distribution. Instead of launching with a traditional boring product push, she tapped into what she has spent years mastering, the content. She launched a highly strategic, organically driven 9-part video series called What Are You Wearing Under? And this was not just a standard polished ad campaign. She literally went into massive comment section, extracted the real data, real vulnerable questions from real women out there, about their actual outfit dilemmas. And then she answered them on camera. The business takeaway here is absolutely critical. She did not sell a product, she monetized a solution. She spoke directly with the highly engaged audience that was already 72% female, heavily concentrated to 25 to 34 age bracket. She built the trust first. She validated the consumer's pain point publicly, creating a massive feedback loop where consumers felt deeply heard and understood before they ever asked to pull out their credit cards. But having an audience is never enough. You also have to have the right product, which brings us to the framework 2, the geocultural pivot. This is where we compare Underneat directly to Skims and see exactly how this playbook was Indianized. You see, you do not always have to reinvent the wheel to build a massive business. Sometimes you need to just ruthlessly adapt to the local terrain. If you look at the core silhouette of Skims in the USA, it is built entirely around bodycon dress and western structured fits. But Underneat looked at the Indian wardrobe and optimized entirely for Indian cultural wear like lehengas, saris, Indo-Western fusion wear, etc. They created specific cuts that cater to the unique drapes, pleats, and falls of ethnic clothing. Then there is the pricing strategy. Skims play in premium luxury segment, easily charging $50 to $100 per piece. For Indian market that is completely not scalable for the masses. Underneat actively positioned itself as a mass premium. They engineered their prices to be 30-40% cheaper than importing brands like Skims. They made it an accessible luxury for the upwardly mobile Indian demographic, hitting the perfect sweet spot between cheap utility and unattainable luxury. And finally, the messaging. Skims relies heavily on the Hollywood glamour, high fashion aesthetics, and an air of exclusivities. Kusha's messaging for Underneat was deeply rooted in a relatable humor. The brand ethos was never about looking like an untouchable celebrity. It was about laughing at the chaotic struggles of getting dressed and offering genuine sigh of relief in India. Now let's look under the hood. Let's talk about the hidden unit economics and the true D2C mode of the entire operations. In traditional direct-to-consumer D2C playbook, brand burns millions of dollars on Facebook and Google ads just to acquire a single customer. The customer acquisition cost or the CAC is a silent killer of Indian startups. You can have a great product, but if it costs you 1,000 rupees to acquire a single customer who only spent 800 rupees, you are out of business. But Kusha's CAC is practically zero at top of the funnel. And this is because of her organic reach. She doesn't have to pay Mark Zuckerberg to find her audience. She already owns the attention. And if you appreciate this business raw metrics, hit the like button so algorithm shows you more of this. And when you have near zero CAC in a category like innerwear, your margins become highly lucrative. Innerwear notoriously have higher margins, often exceeding 60 to 70%. Why? Because the garments require minimal fabric, and once the initial molds and cuts are set, the manufacturing becomes highly standardized and efficient. You're not dealing with the fast fashion trends that completely change every 3 weeks. A perfectly engineered shapewear design can sell for years without going out of style. But even with incredible margins and zero customer acquisition cost, the Indian supply chain will eat you alive if you do not know exactly what you are doing. Manufacturing at scale, quality control across thousands of units, warehousing and fragmented last mile delivery are brutal. Kusha knew her unique strengths and most importantly, she knew her absolute weaknesses. She did not try to play the role of Chief Operations Officer. She partnered with a co-founder, Vimarsh Razdan, to build the heavy operational backbones and truly fortify the business against scale breaking it. They secured the backing from Ghazal Alag, who is the founder of Mamaearth. Ghazal understands the D2C landscape in India almost like anyone breathing. Bringing her in was not about just securing the money, it was about securing the ultimate cheat code for navigating the brutal complexities of scaling a physical product business across India. So you have the entire captive audience, the culturally organized product, the zero CAC advantage, and the operational heavy lift steering the ship. What happens when you put all of that together? The results are nothing short of a statistical autonomy. in the Indian startup ecosystem. Just 8 months post-launch in April 2025, Underneat achieved a staggering 150 crore of annual run rate. That is roughly 18 million US dollars in revenue, generated in less than a year by a brand entering into a highly competitive segment and entrenched legacy market. Most traditional consumer brands take 4 to 5 years of aggressive scaling and millions of dollars to reach at this scale. Underneat tripled that in just 8 months. But the revenue is just a vanity metrics. If you are losing money on every single dollar in India's infamous cash burning D2C segment, profitability is a white whale. Founders chase it for a decade and never find it. Yet Underneat reached EBITDA positive in less than a year. They actually made real money. This is the raw power of the $0 acquisition funnel combined with the high market standardization. It completely breaks the traditional venture capital math, where you are expected to bleed cash for multiple years without seeing a single drop of profit. And the institutional markets took notice immediately. This undeniable financial validation led to a massive funding rounds. Underneat secured $7 million of funding in seed and pre-series A round, led primarily by Fireside Ventures. And this shifted the narrative entirely. This was not just a creator selling a merch to her fans anymore. This was highly capitalized, enterprise ready to dominate the market. With that fresh capital, they did not just sit comfortably on their own website, they expanded instantly. They established a true omni-channel presence, deeply into massive marketplaces like Myntra and Nykaa. They went for being a niche creator-led brand to sitting right next to the legacy brands on the biggest and the more trafficked distribution platform in the entire country. And here is what any other brand builder can replicate from this. First, product market creator fit. Distribution beats the product at the launch, but the product retains the distribution. Second, cultural localization premium. You don't always have to reinvent the wheel. You can take a proven global blueprint like Skims and ruthlessly adapt it to local and cultural nuances. Third, vulnerability to value loop. Turn consumer pain points and awkward conversations into product lines. Tomorrow this could happen to men's grooming industry or any other industry. History is repeating itself but just in different category. So I want to ask you, which billion-dollar global brand needs an Indianized version of it? Drop your thoughts in comments below. And if you want to know how to leverage the conversations into cash, you need to watch this next. Click here to watch my podcast, How to Convert Any Call into Crores. See you in the next one.